What's up, everybody? It's Matthew Newman, aka Mr. Catch on Fire, and the I Just Want to Record podcast. Come kick back and enjoy conversations with folks about the complex and, yes, sometimes mundane intricacies of life, all meant to inspire you. Tiffany Heard, people should know you. Who are you?
Who am I? That is a wonderful question. It makes me reflect on who am I really? So let's get started. It's going to be a long list. My name is Tiffany Heard. Yes, like I heard you. I am most recently an author. I'm an author of a book called Hues of Africa, Journey Between the Lines. And my second book, Hues of HBCUs. What makes them unique is they are coloring activity books. A lot of people say, is it for kids? Is it for adults? Honestly, we can all learn about Africa. We can all learn about HBCUs. You don't know what that is, historically Black colleges and universities. In addition to being an author, I am also a world traveler. I've traveled to over 20 countries. Wow. As a solo traveler. And oftentimes people are like, hey, I want to travel with you. I'm like, all right, bet, let's go. So we have started doing group trips. We do group trips from day trips to Mexico if you're in the LA area, or we do group trips to Ghana, West Africa. And we've also done them to Colombia. And this year we also have added Egypt on the list.
Hey.
And so with the traveling, I'm a travel blogger, travel YouTuber, and I also have a podcast where we talk about solo traveling and dating abroad.
Okay, wait, let me pause you. I typically never interrupt people's introduction, but you said you blog. Yes. So, right.
Yes.
Okay, before we start the podcast, y'all, for those watching and listening, I said, I don't know who writes a blog these days, but you still write the blog.
I still have
All right. I hope you didn't take offense to that. Okay.
No. That's how people found me from the get-go. So that's always my start. And personally, when I am looking for tips to travel, I don't want to watch a video. I would prefer to read, because if I need to reference, I need to screenshot. Okay, they went to this restaurant. It cost this much. A YouTube video is going very quickly. So even though I'm a YouTuber, my go-to is blogs for sure.
Wow. And you've now monetized your platform.
Yes.
So we'll talk about that today. If I forget, because it's not in the notes, but if I forget, let's talk about that.
Okay.
So I think some folks certainly need to know about that and the journey towards that. You said something in the room the other day I think was essential, and I'll bring that up if you don't bring it up today. So let me say it this way. We talked about this at an event that we had here in the space a couple weeks ago about people often saying, like, so what do you do, right? How do you make your money? People ask me that still to this day, and I think it's actually clear, but maybe it's not. So for you, one of the things I wrote down in my notes that I think is that, let me just say this. I wrote down in my notes, a Renaissance woman, defined as one who is a person of many talents and areas of knowledge. Does this accurately describe you?
Yes, I've never thought of myself as a Renaissance woman, but I love that definition. Okay. And I definitely think that, I will go along with that definition for sure. I wear many hats, and yes, sometimes it is overwhelming because it's just me right now, but it's a good overwhelming at this point in my entrepreneur world. We are definitely growing and scaling, and I'm excited about it.
So your day to day. So it's just you right now, handling everything from planning the trips, I'm sure, to organizing all of the logistics that come with being in the specific country at the location. What does your day to day look like? How do you adequately or accurately or precisely, whatever word we're going to use, plan for the trips? What is your day to day? I think that's the question. What's the day to day?
So the day to day, we're talking about entrepreneurship, y'all, but I still work 40 hours a week. So that's what my day looks like with the job. But after, and I will say my schedule is all off. Like, I'm a night owl. So I wake up 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock and start working. I'm not recommending that for anybody. That's just my schedule. So the day to day kind of looks like, when it comes to planning trips, I am very detailed oriented. And I want to make sure I maximize my time. So when I'm at home, I may not be doing too much, but when I go to Ghana, when I go to Colombia, my days are jam-packed because I want to see the world while I'm there. And I always say I can sleep back at home, right? And so that's how I particularly plan the trips. I'm using blogs, I'm using Facebook groups, I'm using various different platforms to design this trip. And the trips are designed exactly how I would travel. Remember, people always say they want to travel with me. So they're designed how I would travel. So when some people say for the Ghana trip, for example, we would get back at 8 o'clock, they're like, I'm tired. And I'm like, okay, again, you can sleep at
next?
home. Like, exactly. But then when I ask them, what do you want to take away from the trip? They're like, nothing. So I'm like, well, okay, we don't complain there. We're having a good time. But that's how I do it. So typically it could be 2 or 3 activities or one long activity for the day. And then you go rest home, you go rest a little bit. And then what we doing tonight? So it's like, I want to see everything. I want to see the food. I want to see the culture. When I talk about food, one of the things that we do is do a cooking class. Like we have to put a cooking class on the list. Cooking food is a big part of the culture. For example, going to Thailand, we took a cooking class. So now I know how to make pad thai.
Wow.
And I brought it back to the family for a family function. They loved it. So it's approved by the family.
Okay.
And it's a little bit easier than what I thought it was. And so that's why it's important. We went to the market and then we came back and cooked the food. And so every country I go to, I now try to incorporate a cooking class.
Okay. So we've talked about your solo trips.
Yes.
After a brief introduction of yourself. Before I go deeper into the actual traveling aspect of Tiffany Heard, some people watching, listening may have never heard of you, or they may have never known that you travel, or they may be listening or watching saying, what is she talking about? She's talking about Thailand, etc. But before we get there, take us into Tiffany Heard. A portion of you, I think you may have said it or maybe not, but where are you from originally? Are you from the LA area? Who was the Tiffany Heard before the Tiffany Heard that people are seeing and listening to now?
Tiffany Heard doesn't change too often. But Tiffany Heard was, I don't know, I'm a college educated woman before you guys knew the Tiffany. I went to Howard, also went to Cal State Long Beach. I'm just a person that is very chill. When people see me, I'm super, super chill. But I just like to have a good time. And my good time is, I probably would say traveling. I know it's being reiterated a lot. But I think that's the person who I was. And it's funny because I had met up with somebody in Ghana and she looked at me and she was like, I wanted to see if you were the person that was on Facebook or social media. And I looked at her and I was like, okay. And I was like, what does she mean by that? And she was like, you always seem so happy-go-lucky on social media. And I said, well, what you get on social media is pretty much what you're going to get in person. So I thought that was very interesting. So I would say that I'm probably the same person on social media that I am off of social media as well. Now, I don't put everything on social media, but what you see is basically what you get. And so that's why I was like, it's not a big difference. I know that sounds weird, but it's not a big difference from what they know now to what was before. So
for the people who see you to be happy-go-lucky, etc., what does Tiffany do when she's not happy-go-lucky? When tough times hit? What happens? You will see me probably very stone-faced. And it's funny too, I will say when we are doing the group trips, I am a little bit more quieter and introspective, but that's because I'm in charge of a bunch of people. So instead of doing the laughing and the talking a lot, I'm like, okay, what do we have next on our schedule? I want to make sure that you all are having fun, having a good time. So I am a little bit quieter on the group trips. That's only because I'm doing a job at that point. I'm not solo traveling. Solo travel, hence the word solo, I only have to worry about myself. Mm-hmm. So I am a bit different. I am working on that though, because I know people want the super, super fun Tiffany on these group trips. So trying to find the balance, we are still trying to get there, but still the same Tiffany overall. Okay. So now let's talk about these trips. So for those watching and listening, they're hearing the group trips, the solo trips again. Walk us through steps 1 through X, whatever that last step is. Do you have a name for your company? When do you travel within certain seasons? Like, let's walk through that complete journey of these group trips, please. So I mentioned that one of my books was called Hues of Africa, Journey Between the Lines. So I have adopted that name as the business name. So the business name is Hues of Africa. A lot of people often ask, is it only for Africans? Is it only for Black people? No, anybody's welcome on these trips. That's just the name that I have adopted. So we'll talk about the latest trip that we've just done. And that trip is to Ghana. So that is happening Daddy December. Okay. So if you guys know about Daddy December, look it up. So that is where
Ghana made an initiative for the diaspora, people from the diaspora who come back to Ghana to come back home. So there's concerts, there's parties, there's fashion shows, anything you can think of, it is going on in Ghana during that time. So that's the particular time why we utilize that time. There's a big concert going on. And so that's the time we've chosen to go. So I think we done our third trip and our biggest trip. We had about almost 20 people on this last trip that we had. Another trip that we do is, since again, I'm from the LA area, anybody's aware of San Diego, we go to San Diego, we cross over into the border to Tijuana, then Rosarito, Mexico. And so I wanted to do those trips because a lot of people, when they hear Mexico off the bat, they're scared. So I wanted to let them know that I would go over there solo just for like dental work and stuff like that. And so I want to let them know that it's not as scary as you think it is. I think the media portrays different countries a different way. For example, I think they said Jamaica is on an advisory, but people fail to forget that America is on an advisory for other countries. So we have to keep that in mind. But it's funny because I had a group of people in the van going to Mexico. I was like, yeah, I don't even know me, because marketing, we did a lot of marketing. And I said, I could be doing anything to y'all. Well, I take y'all over the border. And we laughed about it. It was just a joke, y'all. But it was funny because I do think Facebook and marketing is just amazing word of mouth that I think we took over 50 Black women over to this Mexico trip. And the one thing that I found out was a lot of these people were parents. They like, I need to get away from these kids. I just want to hang out. And it was cool for the people that were scared and solo and weren't bringing a friend or a cousin, and they had a good time. So you become friends for the day, and it's just a good time to get away and relax. And knowing that you're with other people or somebody that's doing it with you, you feel a little bit safer. Mm-hmm. Another trip that we've done is to Colombia. Mm-hmm. And for Colombia, I pretty much organized that whole trip. I will say for Ghana, I do have people on down in the country helping me while I'm there. So it just depends on what trip where I'm doing everything on my own or we're having help on the ground.
So we have the Ghana trip in December, surrounding the day that Ghana recognizes the diaspora to come back home. We have Colombia. We have Rosarito. Thank you. And what are the other trips? Are they seasonal trips?
So Ghana's every year. Mexico it could be every month. It just depends on when people are asking me. And for example, in December, I have somebody call me up and say, hey, I'm turning 50. I want to do a group trip. So we can do those individual ones as well. And we've added Egypt this year. Got it. So I'm super excited for Egypt to add something different to the mixture. I know people are a little bit afraid of what's going on, but Egypt, as we know, we have people on the ground. Everything is as normal. The conflict is not happening exactly in Egypt. Don't want to sound insensitive to what's happening, but for Egypt, we are safe to go.
Got it. Okay. And what about, and this is actually somebody asked me the other day, for a person who does individual travel, if me and my wife or me and so-and-so wanted to go to Jamaica, do you plan those trips?
I could. I don't necessarily like to or probably even want to, because people are people, okay? And so when you get into the smaller things of I want it this way and I want it that way, sometimes people waste your money. Yeah. They can have you do everything and they say, hey, I don't want to go, right? Or it's just a lot going on. I'm so busy with other things. I'd rather handle a group trip versus all these like little individual trips. But technically I could. I used to do itinerary. So people would contact me and say, hey, I need an itinerary. And I would do those for them as well. So it really just depends. Could do it, but not really all that interested.
Let's talk about your books. Yes. So you mentioned Hues of Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, Tiffany Heard is a 2-time author. One of the books that you see on the screen now is Hues of HBCUs. Her first book was Hues of Africa. And one of the most fascinating parts to me that you mentioned earlier in the introduction is the concept of it being a coloring book, almost like an adult coloring book. But recently you received a huge bulk order, and it's not just for adults, right? You have partnered with elementary schools, etc., especially during Black History Month. So this is fitting. I didn't even realize that this was not intentional to put this during Black History Month. But you've had tons of success with these books. Let's talk about your authorship and your inspiration behind the 2 books. What was the inspiration?
So during the pandemic, I was organizing a group trip to Colombia. We had about 15 women, and here the pandemic hits. of course, I was like, okay, we'll be able to go in a couple months because the pandemic, like nobody knew what it was at that time. So of course we could not go on this trip because it was in June and I think the pandemic hit in like March or something. So I was like, well, what do we do? How do we make money? And so that's when I thought of doing the coloring book. I think we were in Walmart line, during the pandemic, you had to wait outside to get in.
Yep.
And so I was like, Mom, I'm going to write a book. And she just looked at me and was like, oh, okay. I don't know if she believed me or whatever the case is, but that's how the first book came about. And it came about because I love Africa. So I started going to Ghana study abroad. So that's how my love of Africa started. And I was like, well, you always hear bad stuff about Africa. We all seen the starving children at midnight when we were younger. And so I wanted to dispel the truth with pictures that were beautiful. Like, this is the Africa that they don't show you.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to put that in a book and I wanted people to learn about it. And so the inspiration for it being a coloring activity book, love my grandma. They say I was her twin. She's no longer here. And she used to love doing crossword puzzles and different things like that. And I also love looking back. I love eating cereal late at night. I love doing the activities on the back of the cereal box. And honestly, although I am college educated, got a master's degree, I don't want to write. I don't want to write a novel. I don't want to write a dissertation. So this is an easier way. And let me not even say easier because people assume coloring activity books are easy.
Look.
If you look at this book.
Let me tell you. The HBCU book.
Right,
like,
exactly.
I'm like, God.
If you look at this book, don't let the coloring part fool you. This was a lot of hard work to research. The Hues of Africa is a 200-page book, and it's all about various HBCUs. And I learned in the process. I only went to Howard. I didn't go to the other schools. So me learning, I know that you can learn as well. So that's the concept behind both of the books, and the concept behind Hues of HBCUs is because I went to Howard and I'm also part of a sorority. So that's the reason why, or the inspiration why we did the HBCUs. And plus it's very important for me. I dedicated the second book to my niece who's only 3 years old. And for me, that's important because nobody taught me about HBCUs at that age. And so I want her to grow up, learn up, whatever college she goes to, I'll be happy. We're going to try to send her to Howard, but you know how that goes. So those are the inspirations behind the book.
Something that's so unique, and I don't know if you correlate these two, but in the beginning portion of our conversation, you mentioned how Hues of Africa is the name of the business. You love Africa. People ask, is it only for Black folks? Is it only blah, blah, blah? No, you invite all people. So that's an important part that you mentioned. And I don't know if you correlated to this portion of you going to Howard, the mecca of HBCUs, in Cal State Long Beach, right? So two polar opposite campuses and college experiences. What do you want someone, for example, at Cal State Long Beach to understand about the experience at Howard? Or what would you want someone who is Caucasian or Asian who has really no in-depth understanding of our culture, what do you want them to pull from Hues of Africa?
So funny enough about Cal State Long Beach, although I don't talk about it as much, it serves as a purpose and a foundation. Although I mentioned the entrepreneur stuff, I don't know if I mentioned, but my background is in social work. Social work is in me. I don't care what I do. I incorporate volunteerism in my group trips. I take volunteerism trips on my own. So social work within helping people is always going to be a part of who Tiffany is. I just love to give back. So Cal State Long Beach is the foundation for all of these other things going out because of my social work background. I'm still in the social work profession, probably never going to leave it. And so it's funny enough because I actually had the Hues of Africa books in the library store at Cal State Long Beach. So we're still making it full circle. And it was funny. I was on TikTok.
Wait, I wish I could add in an applause.
Oh, okay.
So wait, the book Hues of Africa is in the bookstore on a major college campus.
Yes.
Wow. For sale.
Yes.
I just want people to recognize it. That's huge. So congratulations.
Thank you. On TikTok, it was a Latina lady and she was like, can I go to an HBCU? And I'm like, absolutely. I'm so glad. She was like, I don't want to offend him. I was like, you're not offending anybody. I'm glad you had the courage on TikTok to even ask about it. So of course we know the foundation of an HBCU, why we couldn't go. We weren't allowed to learn to read or write, but because we are the people that we are, we're so open, we're so forgiving. We allow other people to come in, even though it wasn't the same thing for us. So the same thing for anybody that wants to learn about HBCUs. It's not just for us. Come and learn about our culture, what we do and how we do things. And the same thing for Cal State Long Beach. So I know they're polar opposites, but they all still make up a part of who I am. I just didn't do a book about a PWI.
Yeah,
so
sure.
that's the reason why I don't talk about it as much, but I still think they very much intertwine with each other.
Yeah.
And it's a part of my foundation. So we're all trying to bring that into a circle. Even as people ask, how does the group trips and books connect? Same type of thing. On the Ghana trip, they get a copy of the Hues of Africa book, right? And eventually, maybe we'll move into doing HBCU tours. I done an HBCU tour in high school and I loved it. Although we didn't go to Howard, I ended up at Howard. It was still a foundation again for a book, for me attending an HBCU. So it's funny in life. I think we often think that things don't make sense or why did it happen? And you look, you're like, oh, that's why that happened. Yeah. This led to the path that I was going on. For example, I used to work at an agency, and this is why you don't burn bridges. And this is why you're always nice to people when you leave. I used to work at an organization, and now because of the book, she bought the first 100 copies. You mentioned that. She has now circled back to me, bought 48 t-shirts, has me paid for 6 in-person speaking engagements with the middle schools. So that's what I mean about everything coming to full circle.
Yeah.
And you just really don't know. I was at that job 5-6 years ago. Then, not thinking about it, as it pertains to a book, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's funny because a person asked me, Tiffany, she looked at me, she said, Tiffany, do you make money from books? And I looked at her like, yeah, I make money for books. But now I will say coming into February, Black History Month, thank God for Black History Month, I would have to say this is my highest paid month
Let's go.
In life.
Yes.
And all because of a book and because of a presentation.
Wow.
And it took me a long time to write the book. And I had even talked to you like, hey, check out your page because the sororities and fraternities are in there. And it took me a while, but I knew that it was going to be a good book. And it has proven, I always say thank God because it's not me. Thank God for giving me the idea to do it and the idea to kind of like push forward with it.
Yeah.
But I do want to say, even though I'm saying this is my highest month ever, it didn't come overnight. I think when I post, I think sometimes I should post the background stuff because I'm posting, oh, somebody bought this and somebody, but did I post about, how long it took me to write the book and how I'm asking people to read it and the corrections and all that kind of stuff. So even my solo traveling leading up to the biggest group trip we had in January, this has been a process. We started off with 4 people, our first group trip. Then the second trip, it was 1 person. We ended up, but when I say that 1 person was one of the best trips I've ever taken and lead it into now the almost 20 people. So don't think that success is overnight. You may have to work at it for a couple years. And with the solo travel, I've started to gain attention because of the blog. They're reading it. And so now I don't care where I go. Somebody knows me. I don't care if it's the airport and I was on my way to Colombia. I'm in Vegas, in Ghana. Everywhere I go, somebody recognizes me. And I don't consider myself a celebrity, but it's the work that I put in for a while. And it's starting to pay off.
Jeez, the editor's going to add in some hand claps right there because it's so big. You mentioned the aspect of overnight. Most they say the average overnight success is 15 years. It's a long time, right? And granted that yours didn't take 15 years, but it takes work. It takes consistency. It takes grit. People think it takes the grind, but you could be grinding the wrong gear and go nowhere. It takes the grit, the tenacity to keep going. And so in these final few moments, this will be the final question that I asked before our closing question that we typically ask everyone is for the person who's watching, the person's listening, what do you tell them when they lose the hope in their own tenacity? What I mean by that is that when the person says, I've been going at this long enough. One person asked in our event the other day, how do I know when it's not working, right? What happens when I get to that place or someone gets to that place and they say, I don't think this is working?
Are we gonna edit? I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, you're fine. And we won't. It's just real life.
I like it.
If you're good with it.
Okay, so I would tell the person, honestly, there are 26 letters in the alphabet. if A, B, and C do not work, you have D, E, F. Do I need to sing the alphabet? You have the rest of the letters left. So some things may not work. Yep. I think I tried to do a course on self-esteem because people always tell me I'm a plus size woman. And so people, oh, you're always so brave, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't want you to say I'm brave or you look at my confidence. I want you to have confidence in your own self. Well, I did this course and I feel like, yeah, we might have got a couple, but it ultimately flopped. Had I stopped because of that one, then I wouldn't have gone on to do the rest of things. Yes, you try stuff. If it doesn't work, you move on. And that's simply that. But you cannot give up because one thing doesn't work. And that's the same thing for social media because I'm a content creator. Some stuff is going to blow up and some stuff is not. I had one video, I wasn't even in the video. And most of my videos are me in the video. This video, I was nowhere to be found in this video. It hit 3 million views on Facebook, right? It was of an event that happened. And so what I say all of that to say is that you have to keep posting. You have to keep showing up because somebody will recognize you. Somebody is watching you. I had people say, I'm going to this group trip because I always see you traveling. I see that you've gone several times, so now I'm going to go. So don't look at the likes. Don't look at your stuff going viral. You don't need any of that to make any money. Actually, you don't. Because on Instagram, I think I only got 5,000. I just told y'all what we're doing this month. So none of those things you have to do, but you have to keep showing up. If you feel down today, okay, get back up tomorrow. Get back up the next week. Just don't stop doing what you're doing because you don't know how you're impacting people. Showing up is impacting them. So if somebody come up to me and say, hey, Tiffany, you inspire me. I'm like, I literally respond back and say, you've warmed my heart because if I inspire one person, I've done my job. And I know I've inspired more than that. So again, remember there's 26 letters in the alphabet. If 3 letters don't work, keep moving. Eventually, if something will work before you get to Z. I promise. Unless your ideas are just horrible, then at that point you need to talk to somebody. But other than that, you're and one idea short. And I will say you need to focus. Do not try to do several things at once. I say because when that happens, clearly we talk about multitasking. There is no such thing as multitasking. I really cannot multitask. Although I say I do, I don't. One thing is going to fall to the wayside. So you need to focus on one good thing real good. Get that together. Let it get monetized. Let that flow. And then you can feed into the next thing. But do not try to do multiple things at once because you will see that if you never master one, you'll never master any. And then you'll keep trying another idea and thinking it's failing. But you didn't put all the hard work into that one thing to make it succeed.
That's real. That's real. I found for me, Tiffany, that I have a lot of passion for a lot of different things. And I realized, I assumed that I must try to fulfill each of the passions and tie money to it. When eventually I figured out that I was doing fulfilling all of my passions. I don't even know if passions is a word, but nonetheless, I was fulfilling it all. But to your point, things were not necessarily falling to the wayside, but they weren't getting the attention that they deserved. And so for me, even this year, I put out on social media, it's like, stop trying to write a full year's plan of goals. Focus on your first 6 months. Once you get to your first 6 months, stop, assess, and move on. Like we think that we have to accomplish everything, but no, stop at letter A, accomplish letter A, move to letter B, letter C, and all the way to Z. And if you got to start over, start over.
That's okay. And it works different. I don't know how everybody minds work, but even me, I don't sit there and write goals down. I don't even put stuff on a vision board. That's just not how I operate. But I know there's things that I want to do. So whether it's in my head or whether it's not, I make sure I do the things that I want to do. So if you're more of a visionary, go ahead and do the vision board. If you're more of I need to speak it out loud, go ahead and do. That just doesn't necessarily work for me or not something that I need to do, but the goals still get accomplished. So however you decide to write your goals down and put it down, just go ahead and go for it.
Yeah, that's incredible. In our final few moments, tell us, Tiffany, what do you want your legacy to be?
That's an interesting question. The answer is I don't really know. But that's I guess if I had to answer, what would my legacy be? I guess my legacy would kind of just to be out there. I mean, to be that whatever that you want to do, go ahead and do it. Like, it doesn't matter what people say, what people think, how people react to it. I think that has been my biggest thing, especially being a person that's on social media. I don't really care about what other people think. Like, you can think what you want. I know what Tiffany is. I know who Tiffany is. And a lot of people, and even though I'm on social media, people still don't know fully everything about me because you can't put everything on social media. Because people think they have an insight.
Yeah.
They think they know you. They think they can talk crazy to you. And I'm like, hold up. This is why y'all really don't know me. Y'all think that I'm quiet. Y'all think that I'm this. But if you talk mess to me, eventually, I'm going to say whatever I need to say.
You want to invite them across the border to Mexico and,
Yeah, leave them over there. Exactly. So I just feel like, right. That's for me, that's the thing, is to go out and do the things that you want. And you can't care about other people's opinions. And I know that happens a lot, especially again in our social media war. So go out and do the things that you want to do. Always try to do something different. And I would say just always be doing something. I don't understand people that don't either have a goal or just sit around and do nothing. Like that perplexes me, especially since I'm doing multiple things. I'm like, aren't you bored? Don't you want something to look for? So I would say those are just a couple things. I don't know if that answered your question.
Yep.
But those are a couple things that a legacy that I would live for other people. And one of my mottos for traveling is I say I'm living my best life in whatever country that I'm in. So we always gonna have a good time.
That's incredible. I said the other day, make sure that your network, I'm paraphrasing, make sure that your network is aiming towards something. If they're wandering aimlessly, let them wander, but you get the heck out the way.
Exactly. Before we end too, you mentioned your network. It is very important. This is random, but to have an accountability partner if you're in this entrepreneur world. For me to be able to talk to other entrepreneurs is gold. I love my mama, but she and my daddy, but they don't understand the entrepreneur world, nor maybe do they really care, right? But the entrepreneur people that I'm talking to, we can be like, hey girl, can I bounce this idea off of you? Or what should I do in this aspect? Or I need help there. Or how can we share resources? I have a good friend who I went to high school with. Her resource, she's always sharing resources. And for that, she's going to be blessed as well. And so I think it's very important to have those people around because they're going to push you. And they're going to say, Tiffany, did you write that book? Did you finish? If I tell them I'm doing a third book, which we want to do a third book, they're going to be always constantly asking me, what are you doing next? Are you almost finished? What are the next steps? So make sure what you said as well, but make sure your network is about business and doing what you need to do so that you can have that push to keep.
Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only, the Renaissance woman, Tiffany Heard. Thank you so much for joining us on the I Just Want to Record podcast. Until next time, we'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us on the I Just Want to Record podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow so that we can inspire more people just like you. Until next time, I'm Matthew Newman, aka Mr. Catch on Fire, signing off.